forgiveness is a choice. I would like for me to feel lovey-dovey about the people who have hurt me, but the reality is I don't. I don't look at them and go, wow, they're great people. But I can forgive them and recognize what they did was wrong. It doesn't change what they did by me forgiving. It sets me free.
Yes.
So that they're not renting space. They've already taken from me. Why would I let them capture that many more years of my life being bitter and angry?
Welcome to the show today. I am really excited to bring to you a guest that I think you're going to love. She has an amazing story of how God has redeemed her pain and how she's using that to help others. Welcome, Debra.
Hi, Christine. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I am so honored to get to unpack your story with you and talk really about how people can have takeaways from your story for their own lives, because you and I are overcomers.
Amen. Absolutely. Victorious in Jesus.
Yes, we are.
Not on our own, but in Jesus.
Yes. And we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the people that went ahead of us that were bold and brave enough to share whatever they had gone through, that we were able to get our takeaways from while we're in this in between. You know, I call it the messy middle, where we're not where we were, but we're not into that, perfection in Christ, that we're not going to see that till heaven.
That's true. I like that. The messy middle.
Yes.
It is messy.
It is messy.
Life can be really sticky.
Yes. So for those who don't know you, I would like you to just unpack a brief story, your story in brief, and then we'll go dig into parts of it, and we'll dig into healing, really, is what I want to get to. So tell us who you are, Debra.
I'm a woman that's had a lot of ups and downs, like most of us in life. Come from a background of sexual abuse, and that's where I spend most of my time in ministry, is helping women cope with the grief that comes with sexual abuse. I've had quite the story in regards to, like most of us, a dysfunctional family. I don't think there's a family out there that isn't dysfunctional. Did the teen pregnancy thing, have a beautiful son who's now 31.
Okay, so wow, teen pregnancy, yeah. We'll maybe unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, a couple of marriages, so there's some of that, and married to a wonderful Christian man, and just doing ministry with him now. We have a podcast called Detours, which has been exciting. We're in season 5, and we talk very much about the ebb and flow of life and the ups and downs that life brings us. And again, what's the takeaway? How do we grow? How do we learn? How do we be better for the sake of Jesus?
Yeah, that's why I want to talk to you, because you're committed to growth and wanting to help other people and bring them along on their journey to wholeness.
Yeah, amen.
So
what else can I tell you? You want me to start with some of my story, or?
Yeah, you mentioned a dysfunctional family, which you said everybody has. I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think most stories start in the family of origin, right?
Right, it's true.
We don't realize how much impact that story has on our life. But, I come from a loud, dysfunctional Italian family where, dinner tables were screaming and yelling. And, to the outside world, we seem like very fun, joyful, big family, always around the dinner table, but behind closed doors, anger was not acceptable. Anger was acceptable, excuse me. But
yeah, it was vulnerability.
Totally not acceptable.
That's my family too.
Yeah. You could be mad, but you best not cry. You best not come with tears.
Wow.
Yeah. So, then we have just everyone talking over each other. So very poor communication. I'm amazed that I could have a stable conversation with anyone coming from my family, but God has been good to teach me. And my first real pain came in the family of origin. I have an older brother who is 10 years older than me. And I think really the very first time I experienced what I didn't call sexual abuse for a very, very long time was being held down, being mounted by this very large teenager. I was 5 from what I can remember, and he was 15.
Wow, that's quite the age gap.
Yeah, big size difference.
Right. You weren't gonna throw
I
him
wasn't
off.
going to overcome that.
No,
Yeah. So just being held down, being kissed, not being able to have a moment to catch my breath, not being able to say no, like no didn't really mean no. And for the longest time, I just chalked that up to, civil, like that sibling kind of tension that happens in most homes.
Right. Sibling rivalry.
Right.
And Deborah, I don't know if you know this, but I really relate to your story. That's why I wanted to stop you right here, because I have an older brother who there was sexual abuse as well, and I didn't see it as sexual abuse.
Right.
I called it sibling rivalry. I was in my, I didn't know like in my 30s, maybe close to 40 before a therapist said that was sexual abuse. I said, no way. That was sibling rivalry.
Yeah. We minimize our story a lot. And I actually think that holding down really set me up and kind of positioned my body to be in a, we talk a lot about fight and flight, but we don't talk a lot about freeze.
Yes, it's so important.
It is.
Freeze. That was my response to
absolutely.
trauma.
Like you're just stuck. And because saying no didn't produce anything, because fighting back didn't produce anything, my body just was like, okay, if I just stay still and don't do a thing, it'll be over soon enough.
Yes, that's
Right.
exactly how it was with my brother. I was like, it will be over faster. The less I resist, because my resistance only got more abuse.
Right.
Because my brother was also physically abusive, not just the sexual abuse. And mine was a mild form of sexual abuse. That's why I didn't see it as abuse. Like I know
Is anything mild though?
I mean,
I think that minimizes.
Yeah, okay. So like I know what rape is, intercourse, and so because it wasn't like that,
Right.
I didn't see it as sexual abuse.
Right. Okay. And that's common. People don't realize what a broad umbrella sexual abuse has.
Correct.
Really. And once you learn that, it kind of is this aha moment that you're like, oh, things that you minimized and pushed down really start to come up out of the surface and bubble up. And you're like, oh, that was a violation.
It was. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that kind of set me up for a childhood sexual abuse with a family friend who, I mean, we hung out with this family all the time. They were the only other Italians in like, Texas. I mean, here we are with this loud family and we're so out of place. And so we gravitated to this family who is also from the Northeast. And we did a lot of things with them. And they had an older son and daughter in between my brother and sister's age. I was the youngest by many years, by at least 7 to the young lady. And I think they dropped me off just, hey, we're going to go out and play cards. And they dropped me off at this family's house and they trusted them. And, kids are not always trustworthy. And you really should not allow a child to be sleeping in anyone's room. And so that was kind of really hard to unpack for me, because I was placed in the young lady's room. And, I could just tell you that they weren't going to put me in the living room. They weren't going to put me in the boys' room. So they thought that was the safest place. And it was hard for me to unpack the fact that it's not just, we sometimes think it's just males that abuse, but women abuse too.
Yeah.
And I just think that moment in her bed, I didn't realize I could say no. I was 7 when that happened, and I had already had this freeze response. And so I just froze. I didn't really know what to do or what to say.
Yeah.
So
it's that learned helplessness.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. And it's also maybe a feeling sometimes of powerlessness, especially with the brother. I felt that way, where I couldn't overpower him. He was several years older, and it was never a fair fight in terms of, we weren't on equal playing field. 4 years older, male, and yours was 10 years older.
Yep.
We were just at their mercy.
Yeah. And I was the youngest child in every situation. So there was always someone older. And, you want to be liked and you want to fit in. And, this young lady was someone I looked up to. She was pretty. She was a pageant queen, a teen pageant queen. And, I just wanted to be liked and accepted. I was picked on quite a bit, even at 7 and
Really?
school. Oh gosh,
What were
for
you
real.
being picked on for?
My favorite term was fat roasting pig.
What?
Yeah. I look back at pictures and I was not fat, but kids are just mean.
Yeah, kids are mean.
Kids are very, very mean. And I was very tenderhearted in a family that was just like, don't worry about it. Well, yeah, that's not how you help a kid cope with their emotions. So I wasn't really allowed to express how hurt I was at school. And for anyone to like me was just such a,
Yeah.
So that day changed me. That changed me in ways I did not realize for nearly 3 decades. I would have never correlated that to some of the other behaviors that came out in life as I started to, I immediately suppressed that. I did not feel I had a safe home where I could tell somebody. I didn't know that I would be believed because I love them half to death, but they always think the worst of people. They still do. So
You mean your family?
my family.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just didn't feel like it was a safe environment. If I couldn't cry, how was I going to tell them,
Something devastating happened. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I think, it's uncomfortable to say out loud, but I think it's something that people need to hear. Your body is wired for pleasure. It's wired for sound. You know what I mean? Like touch feels good. And when you have a physiological response to something that's very unhealthy happening to you, you don't know how to process that at 7 years old.
It's very confusing.
Very. And for the longest time, I thought, maybe being held down and being forced to do anything was the way that was supposed to feel good. And even the fact that she was the same gender as me gave me quite a bit of confusion growing up, because that was my very first physiological response was from, the same gender. So that was hard for me. And, I had no outlet to discuss that with anybody.
Yeah. Okay. So the psychologist Henry Cloud, you may have heard of him.
I have.
Yes. He's famous for the book Boundaries, but there was another book he wrote called Changes That Heal. And in that book, he says that children are the best recorders of information, but the worst interpreters. So like here you are, interpreting that this is how you receive love when it's somebody being forceful with you. And that's a very confusing message.
Sure.
For any child.
Yeah, I had a lot of strange fantasies into my early adulthood until I met Jesus that I just thought were normal. Again, being forced, being held down, being overpowered. And I just think, wow, that one moment at a time, that's all it really takes to shift you in the wrong direction and not really understand how to process. And so, like many people who have survived sexual abuse, there's re-victimization that we don't talk about because you almost feel like, well, I'm the common denominator. Why would I tell anybody this?
So then it feels like it's your fault.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
And
so there's a lot of shame wrapped around that. There's a lot of who's going to believe me? I'm the one that keeps finding myself in these situations. And so you don't say anything because of the immense shame that kind of just clouds you.
Right. And then you just isolate.
Yes.
And you're just carrying this pain around.
Yeah. And for the longest time, I just kept saying, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. I was just a little kid. What's the difference? The minimization that we kind of do to suppress emotions, to suppress pain, to suppress confusion. I just built a wall, man. I was impenetrable. I was just an angry, and I didn't understand why I was angry. Like I had this anger that brewed up in me all the time. And I just thought, well, we're Italian. No, seriously.
So you blamed it on your heritage.
Sure. I was like, this is a common misnomer that if you're Italian, you must be angry. So I just was like, I don't know. I'm just angry. And there would be times I was just angry and couldn't put my finger on why I was angry. Well, I had a lot of injustice in life.
Right. Okay. And that wasn't acknowledged.
No.
And not even by you.
No.
much less by anybody else.
No, anger was, I don't want to say, it sounds dramatic to say, but I almost feel like in an unspoken way, anger was celebrated in the culture.
The Italian culture.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Is
You
it like
were-
a badge of honor kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah.
Really? Okay.
At least in my family. I can't speak for other Italian families.
So you just
but-
fit right in with the angry.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then in my 20s,
Wait, you got to your 20s. Hold on. You were
skipping right over.
well,
No.
you had a child as a teenager.
I did.
So, but also something happened significant, and I don't know if it was where it was in relation to being a mom, where I think it was a work scenario.
Yes.
Yes. So can you walk me through
Sure.
those things?
I was already a teen mom.
Okay. So what age did you become a teen mom?
I was in the 11th grade. So
Like 16?
well, I was held back a year, so I was probably right around 17 and then gave birth. No, I was hitting my 18th birthday and gave birth right before I turned 19.
Okay.
So I was in 11th grade.
Do
yeah.
you think your history, first of all, set you up for that? To be
Sure.
tell
I
me
actually
how.
do.
Can you tell me how?
Well,
The
I'm
sexual abuse history.
I'm trying to break down how much the lack of self-respect I had. I wasn't valued.
Okay.
I wasn't heard or seen. And
So you just wanted attention, probably.
I wanted to feel like I belonged.
Yeah.
And because I didn't quite feel like I fit in my own family, and I certainly didn't fit in social scenarios, like at school, I was not well liked. Again, bullied.
I find that so hard.
I
You're
know,
such a
because I'm
likable-
so charming now.
I know. I just I'm sad,
Yeah,
like
it
why
was
would
sad.
somebody not be nice to you? You're such a beautiful person.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess people are just mean. We live in
They
a
are.
hard world. And
Well, I moved from a lot of different places.
Oh,
so
so
I
you're
was
the new
always the
kid.
new kid. And when you have someone to pick on, it takes the pressure off for you. So I was an easy target.
the new kid, definitely the easy target.
Yes, and my face always showed my emotions. So when you are picking on someone and they show it upsets them, it just sets aflame the bullying.
Because they just want to get a rise out of you.
Oh yeah, I'm an easy person to get a rise out of,
I'm
at least
so
as
sorry.
a kid.
That's hard.
Yeah. And so when I started to come into my teenage years and I kind of blossomed into a better looking kid, I did get a lot of attention, and it was nice. It was the first time I was not, called fat or ugly.
Okay,
and-
so now you're getting positive attention.
yes, from all the wrong people.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
Right. Like the popular kids didn't like me. But man, the burnouts and the kids that were skipping school and partying, those kids just thought I was great. And that, that felt like belonging. And so I wound up socializing with some people, and they took me to this, like what I would call now like a flop house for sure. It was
I
just
don't even know what a flop
oh
house
my
is.
gosh,
What
just-
is that?
it's a party house. People
Oh.
just kind of hang out, come and go. There's always some kind of alcohol or, whatever your flavor might be of the day. And I met my son's dad, who was considerably older than me.
So you met him at a flop house?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no parents around, I guess.
No, I'm lying about where I am because
No, but I mean, wherever this house is,
oh
there's
no, these were grown people. I was a 17-year-old with grown people. I talk about
so this
putting
wasn't-
myself in
Okay.
environments that were really unsafe, but these were grown men that had a house.
You know what? It makes sense though, like because you weren't seen, you weren't heard, so
Mhm.
like you want to be. Everybody needs to be seen,
Yes. And feel accepted.
right?
It's such a deep longing in our humanity, and we'll gravitate to that. So I met my son's dad. He was 24. I was 17. We had the same birthday. He was good looking. He was a bad boy, and we hit it off. And, it was shortly after, I don't think we were even together a year before I got pregnant. So teen pregnancy. And by the time I get to the date rape at work, if you even want to call it date rape, I had already left his dad. And I had kind of just ventured out on my own because I really didn't feel like I could live at home and raise my son.
Can I ask you though, as far as I do want to hear more about the experience of date rape and how that impacted you, and then we'll get to the good part, the healing journey, you know. But when you became a pregnant teenager at 18, was there pressure for you to either give up your child? You know, like how did you make a decision to I'm going to raise a child?
Well,
at
to
that
be
age,
perfectly honest with you, like I didn't even know I could make any other choice but to be a mom. It was either be a mom or give him up for adoption. And even as a young kid, I thought, how can I know that there's a kid out there that I mothered that I don't know? Like that seems so unbearable to me.
that you would birth a child and then not have a relationship.
Yeah, it just didn't seem like I could handle that kind of emotional like distance.
Okay. And nobody was like your boyfriend at the time there was no pressure to abort or anything like
absolutely
that?
not. He was like, whatever you feel is right, I'll support you in whatever decision that is.
And so we haven't talked about faith yet. Did you have a Catholic background? I think of Italian as more Catholic.
Yes.
So,
but we were nominal Catholics.
So
By
you
this
weren't-
time, we were like Christmas and Easter kind of Catholics.
okay. So,
yeah.
So faith wasn't really prominent, but you had a pro-life stance.
Yeah, yes, abortion was never something I ever talked about or thought was, I could even make that choice. Not that I would make that choice now, but it just was so off the table in my mind. It wasn't even an option.
Okay.
It was either I'm going to be a mom or I'm going to be a mom that has a kid somewhere out in the world that I don't know. And that just seemed devastating to me. And so it was definitely, I'm doing this.
Okay.
I also didn't want to live under my parents' home. You know, I didn't want to live with my parents and be a teen mom. And, you know, back in those days, it was much better economy. So I lived with his dad and
lived with
Anthony's dad, my son's dad.
Right. Okay.
And I didn't work for the first, 4 years, maybe.
Oh, so you got to raise your son.
I did. I was very excited about that, but it was a very toxic relationship. So I was like, I can't raise a kid in this relationship.
Okay.
It was very unhealthy and kind of brought up all the insecurities I've had about criticism. You know, I came from a very critical home and a very untrusting home. And here I was with a very untrusting, critical man. So I literally repeated that pattern of, well, this looks normal. This feels comfortable.
Well,
right?
It would feel comfortable. It would feel normal because it's your normal.
Right. And not comfortable, but comfortable for what you know.
Right. Yes, it's familiar, basically, is what we're saying. And so it's attractive because it's familiar, because sometimes the unfamiliar, even if it's better, is scary.
Very, very scary. Healthy is very scary when you're dysfunctional. So, yeah. And by that time, I had said, well, I can't do this anymore. I can't go home to my parents. I mean, they would have taken me home, but it wasn't something I was willing to do. So I got a little studio apartment and lived in not such a good neighborhood and ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you know? So he was 4. I remember the first day we walked into that little tiny studio apartment. He's so cute. And he looked around. He goes, "It's nice, Mommy. Where's the rest?"
Oh, no.
I'll never forget that. Yeah, so it was small, but it was just me and him. Yeah. And so I had decided, well, I need to be able to support myself. So I got to go work and found a job in the brokerage industry, financial brokerage. And he was in daycare. And I was in that industry for a while. And brokers are a breed all of their own. So I was working in an environment that was very fast paced and very materialistic and underhanded, I would say. Underhanded, for sure. And then I briefly met somebody. And when I say briefly, I mean briefly. I don't even know how I met him. He was like, to this day, I call him the nameless face. I know that I had met him and it wasn't like this rape was in a back alley or somebody drugged me. Like, it was nothing like that, but it was somebody I had gone out with one time prior for a cup of coffee or something. And he seemed nice and he was handsome. I didn't have a chance to really get to know him. And he said, I worked at a building. See, and I don't know why this didn't click, but I worked at a building that was under renovation. And he said to me, I noticed your building's under renovation. There's a floor that's just vacant. Why don't I bring us some lunch? We'll have lunch and hang out. Well, I didn't know hang out meant I was going to be raped. Like, it's not what I thought was going to happen. Otherwise, why would I do this?
Right.
So I was just, it's like, oh, okay, he's handsome. He's bringing me lunch. This is great. And we weren't more than 2 minutes on that floor, and I was pushed against a wall, and my panties are at my ankles, and I'm just like, what is happening? Like, the immediate reaction to freeze, it took me right back to being 5 years old. I was paralyzed. And I'm like almost outside of my body, looking at the scenario going, this can't be happening.
Dissociating, right?
Totally dissociated. And I did finally get a no out of my mouth, barely, and before I knew it, it was done and over. And he walked out, and I was just like stuck there, like, holy crap. And I went back to work. I was so dissociated. And so I had a wall so built that I just dusted myself off. I pulled my pants up and went back to work like nothing happened. And I didn't talk about it for 20 years. And then the program that you and I both attended, that leadership conference, there was an opportunity to share a story. And I shared it for the very first time 20 years later.
Yeah. What year was that? Like 2015, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was the leadership course, and that was a huge thing in my life too.
Yes.
And it was an exercise where we talk about where we had experienced being victimized.
Yes. Yeah. And I couldn't even say the word victim. I was like, victim? But
So you had like contempt for being a victim?
Yes,
Sounds
I
like
did.
it. Yeah.
I had an absolute contempt because weakness was viewed as being unacceptable.
Yeah.
God forbid you should be weak in my family. I'll give you something to cry about was the famous motto. And, so I couldn't really even say the word.
So you didn't tell anybody?
I didn't tell anybody. And I just buried it. And it would rise up, when you're suppressing grief and you're suppressing pain, you just wind up doing things to self-soothe. Whether that's, pretending to have a perfect body and being in the gym constantly, to being a controlling person, to, numbing out with food or numbing out with, alcohol or drugs or even sex. Anything to kind of press down that feeling was kind of the life I was leading before Jesus.
Okay. Talk to me about how you came to faith and when you came to faith.
I was like 33 years old.
So you're raising your son.
I'm raising my son. I had, to keep it short, I had a couple marriages under my belt. So it was marriage 2.
Okay.
And that had ended. Or no, it hadn't ended yet. I actually was married. And I came to Jesus on the heels of a drunken binge, Christine. Yeah, I had gone out to our favorite, bar, and Anthony, my son, was with his dad, who would sometimes show up, and it so happened that he had showed up that weekend. And I remember how much I prepared for that evening. I wanted to look perfect.
So wait, you're going out with Anthony's dad?
No, I'm going out with my husband at the time.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, there's lots of men in the story.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. And
so you're going out with your husband?
I'm going out with my husband
looking
at the
your
time,
best.
looking my best. And the bartender, she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you drunk tonight." And I mean, when you're a heathen, your bartender that you like and you have a relationship with. I mean, it was in the bar more than I was anywhere else, right? I was like, oh, that's great. And after that second drink, I don't remember anything of the night. And I woke up the next morning confused and asked my husband at the time what had happened. And he said, meet me in the garage, because that's where we would smoke cigarettes, and I'll tell you everything. And he proceeded to just tell me things that I was just like, how could that be? I don't remember any of that. So I had an alcohol blackout.
Mm-hmm.
And the final thing he said to me after he explained an evening that I don't remember was, I'll leave you to think about what you've done. I was like, okay. And I was left in that garage, and I was so devastated. I was so devastated. And I smoked with the garage door open so I wouldn't, stink. And across the street from me was a little tiny Baptist church. I mean, really tiny. And it was Sunday, and I saw all these people coming out of the church service. And, Black people dress up for church. They do. They
Okay.
are so elegant with their gloves and their hats and their perfect outfits. And they just looked really happy. And I had this brief thought like, wow, they have it all together. I mean, nobody has it all together, but
Right.
they have it all together. And I'm contemplating my whole life. And I'm not one to say that I heard the audible voice of God, but in my spirit, I heard God say, you've lived by a church your entire life.
Mm.
And Christine, that was place 14 that I had lived in since childhood. We moved a lot.
Wow.
14 places. And God, just like a movie reel, just started to play every house and where the church was in proximity to that house. And it was always like a baseball throw away from my house. And I just was so struck by wow, I have lived by a church my whole life. And then I heard in my spirit, I've been calling you. And I was just like, what? I instantly just clammed up on God. I just crossed my arms and rocked back and forth. And I'm just thinking about the night that had happened. And you're calling me psst, what does that even mean? And how do I know I'm even hearing this? But this is not something I would say to myself.
Yeah.
And very belligerently, I said out loud to a voice that was in my head, you trying to tell me something? God is so patient.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. So to make a very long story short, I wind up being invited to Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale with my husband's ex-wife, which he did not quite like. And after a couple of times being there, I really felt called. I saw my son go up and receive Christ, and he was a teenager at the time. He was 13, and I felt like, oh my gosh, he gets it. This is what a faith of a child looks like. I've been contemplating my whole life. I've wasted a ton of time, and he's running towards Jesus. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm doing this. And I ran after him, and we took an altar call.
Oh, you both went forward on the same day.
I really believe in my heart of hearts, if Anthony didn't go forward, I don't know. Yeah.
I totally pictured you at the Black church, though. I was like, what happened to you in the Black Baptist church?
I didn't know. I didn't know if I'd be welcome. I had no frame of reference.
Well, you
for
have to
church.
get all dressed up, wear a hat.
Yeah, and I only had whole clothes.
Oh.
I did.
Oh my gosh.
So I didn't have any of those fancy
whole
dresses.
clothes. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I get saved, and my ex-husband's like, where's my Deb? Who's this girl? Because I went listen, if you would have told me my whole life would have changed when I said yes to Jesus, I probably would have been terrified. What do you mean my whole life? Everything I thought I wanted, I no longer wanted. It was radical, and it was radical to me. And I didn't want to go to the bars anymore. I never told him, oh, you shouldn't go. I wasn't condemning him, but I just didn't, even prior to getting saved, that few months before I got saved, I was like, this just feels empty, bro. These people aren't our friends. They just want to party with us. If push come to shove, none of these people are coming to have our backs. And he just loved it there. And so he continued to go without me. I'd stay home. Sometimes that was a wrestle and a fight. And to be just perfectly honest, it really was like the more I fell in love with Jesus, the more he was repelled. And I made a point not to be someone who preached at him.
Mm.
But eventually he stayed at the bar and women noticed he was alone. And he was a musician, so, oh, you're so great. So he got all the compliments and all the accolades, and there was a lot of temptation, and he cheated. And I finally was like, oh, well, I'm not doing this. And so I was alone and single, newly saved. I threw myself into church. I threw myself into leadership and growth programs. And I finally met a really amazing woman that became my spiritual mom. And I still hadn't told her my story. But as I continued to unpack some of my pains and some of my hurts, she finally, after a year, said to me, I love you so much, but I can't do this with you anymore. I think you really need more help than I can offer you. I really think you need to go and see somebody and get some real help. I'm just here to walk you through the Word of God, and that's wonderful. And I love doing it, but you need to go. Like, she was like the mama bear pushing me out.
Sounds like it was like a discipleship relationship, but she's going, you need some healing or something else, right?
Yeah.
Before you get more into that, I want to know, like, because you saw your son go forward and you went forward, so I assume he's still growing in his faith also.
He is.
I mean, at that time, right? Like,
maybe for the first few years. I think by 16, he had kind of, walked away from the Lord.
Okay.
I know that he has a very solid intellectual understanding of Scripture. I do believe he believes, but he is certainly not surrendered. And I don't even know if he would call himself a Christian. So.
Okay, so you guys were on the same path for a few years. And then, but you kept going.
I kept going, yes.
Okay. And so somebody's discipling you and saying you need more.
Yes. And so I wound up taking a lot of different programs, and one of them was called Family Life Skills. It was very popular in the early 2000s, I guess.
And was that after we did the leadership course where you finally, like...
Before the leadership course.
Oh, you had taken Family Life Skills before that. Okay. Because I was trying to understand.
Or maybe it's probably running simultaneously.
Okay, I just didn't know, like, because I know that the leadership course that we both did, for me, it was huge. And I know that it was significant for you as well. And I was just curious, just the timeline kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it was running either after I took some of the courses or simultaneously. It's kind of a while now. But
yeah, because there was a lady who spoke at that who had also been sexually abused and shared really honestly about being raped.
Yeah, it was very raw.
Right.
And I was like, wow, holy moly. And then I also felt her story was so different than mine. It was far more graphic, far more violent. And I think...
Because that was a gang rape that she was talking about, right?
And I think survivors sometimes then go, well, mine's not that bad.
Minimize again, right?
Yes, constantly minimizing.
Yeah.
And so, but her bravery to tell the story and to use it to help other people was really inspiring to me. And she told that story not in anguish, but in... almost like not a piece that had happened, but that she had come to terms with what had happened. And that was really remarkable to me. I was like, wow, I'm floored by this. So
probably inspired. Yeah.
Inspired, definitely.
Yeah.
And I wound up going through a couple of other things. One of it being the most pivotal was Trees of Hope. And Trees of Hope is a nonprofit organization that I currently minister in
Yeah,
regularly.
You're one of their leaders now.
Mm-hmm.
So you went through their course. That's for women who've been sexually abused.
Okay. So it's twofold. It's a side of it where we do community education on sexual abuse prevention.
That's so good. I wish I'd had that as a child.
Me too. I wish my parents would have had that.
Oh man. I wish somebody explained boundaries and that, you know, you could speak up and say, hey, you know,
right.
Like when something was happening.
And you're teaching parents to give your child a voice. You're teaching them what does the grooming process mean? Because all these words were like, we didn't know what's grooming, you know? And now parents are dealing with social media and, you know, gaming platforms. I mean, they're people trying to reach children in obscene ways constantly. And as a parent, I definitely feel it's a privilege to kind of walk them through this. So you have the prevention side, and then you have the 12-week healing program. And that program walks you through, you know, what is sexual abuse? What are some of the symptoms that people who have experienced this go through? And that's actually pretty relieving because you think you're an island all on your own. You think your dysfunction is, I'm just so messed up. And when you come to find out other people who have dealt with sexual abuse have very similar patterns of behavior, it covers dysfunctional families. It covers anger and forgiveness and grief. It's beautiful. And you write a lot of letters along the way so that you can process.
I want to talk about the forgiveness piece because I think that's something that's really misunderstood in Christian culture.
I absolutely think it's misunderstood.
Yeah, I think it's like sometimes just, you know, oh, you just have to forgive. Like, tell me about your forgiveness journey because I think that it's been profound.
I think the misnomer of forgive and forget, I think that is the most hurtful cliche I've ever heard because we're not wired that way. You can forgive, but you're not forgetting.
It's dismissive, isn't it?
It is.
It dismisses your pain.
Yes.
Doesn't it contribute to, like you were saying about feeling not heard, not seen?
Right.
So if you have to forgive and forget, it's like, you don't matter.
Just get over it.
I don't matter.
Right.
My pain doesn't matter.
Right. And I think that's something that we really need to help people to understand is when someone is expressing something as painful as sexual abuse, first of all, the sexual abuse survivor needs to understand one thing. And this is something I had to learn. My story is sacred and not everyone gets admission into my story.
Yes.
You know, like they don't. They
have to earn the right to hear your story.
Right. You don't just get my story. You need to be safe. And safe means you exhibit behavior that's consistent, that I can tell you things and you don't run off and tell anyone else. I can tell you things and you don't shame me or judge me. And I'm not saying there can't be correction in friendship, but judging and correction are different. And so not everyone was safe to tell this story to. And when you give that out to somebody and they pretty much go, well, you just need to forget about it. That's not how it works. And we're not called to do that. I think we're called to process through it. And when I think about how the Bible sets it up is the book of Lamentations, man, these people are in captivity from Babylon. They're devastated. And God allows them to lament and cry and question and be angry. And God's not rebuking them for that. You know, so
that's really rich.
It gives you permission that God is willing to sit with you in your grief. And I think that the forgiveness part of it is, I always believed that I had to feel forgiving. And forgiveness is not a feeling.
Okay.
Forgiveness is a choice. I would like for me to feel lovey-dovey about the people who have hurt me, but the reality is I don't. Like, I don't look at them and go, wow, they're great people. But I can forgive them and recognize what they did was wrong. It doesn't change what they did by me forgiving. It sets me free.
Yes.
So that they're not renting space. They've already taken from me. Why would I let them capture that many more years of my life being bitter and angry? It's not, they don't deserve that. They don't deserve to have any more rent in my head than I already allowed them, you know?
That's what the lady we were talking about who spoke and shared her gang rape story, she said, because we had a powerful conversation about my brother and I when I went through this course. And by the way, I told her, I said, look, you guys call yourselves, leadership and character development. That was, this leadership course. I said, I think you undersell it. I got inner healing. And she goes, what do you think character development is? And I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's a good point.
She goes, nobody's going to come if we say inner healing.
Yeah, people will shy away from that.
Right. So I was like, oh, okay. But she said, your brother rents space in your head for free. And I was like, oh, she's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like carrying someone else's offense and like bearing the weight of that like a bag of rocks on your back. And so I think that the forgiveness part is a journey. Like, I think the church would like you to just, get over it. And the Lord says to forgive. And all of those are true. It's true.
When you said when the church is like, say, just get over it from the church, it took me right to your Italian family. Just get over it.
Yeah.
So like.
Yeah, like. I think it's a spiritual Band-Aid to just tell someone, well, the Lord won't forgive you if you don't forgive others. And Christine, it's a very true scripture. And I don't ever think that that's a bad thing to say. I think there's a time to say that. I think there's a time to say that to someone, but to just throw that out when someone is struggling is not helpful.
It's like I feel like it's beating somebody up.
Yes. The forgiveness is a journey, and sometimes it's like, yeah, I've forgiven, Lord, I've got this. And then something will happen that triggers that same emotional abandonment or fear. It's a trigger. And you're right back where you started from. And then you got to present it to the Lord again and go, Lord, I don't want to carry this. And I think this is the dying to self that the scripture talks about. It's not a one-time thing.
Right. It's not one and done.
No, it's an ongoing journey.
Yeah. Okay.
And for people to expect immediate forgiveness, I really don't think gives people the opportunity to process through the grief, because other people are uncomfortable with your grief. They don't want to sit in it with you. The wrong people don't want to sit in it.
Right. I was going to say, you just said that's where safe people is very important.
Right. And so because they're uncomfortable with your pain and your grief, they will throw out these things to try to rush you along.
But those are also people who probably haven't dealt with their stuff.
That's very true.
I think it's more about them than it is about you.
Yes,
but
for sure.
If we don't know that, then it feels like, I think if you're young in your faith, it can feel like I'm not doing this right, this Christian thing right. Because we want to please God. And so if this is Christian leaders saying, you need to forgive and forget or move on or whatever, instead of making space for us to, like you said, grieve.
Right. And I think grief is something that we really are genuinely not schooled in. I mean, who schools you about grief?
Nobody.
Right?
Nobody.
Grief is that not just I'm grieving a moment in time, I'm grieving all the things that I lost because of that moment in time. It's the gap in between what you wanted to happen and what reality is.
Okay, so you just took me to when you're talking about grief. So I went to see a therapist in I think it was 2001. I was in ministry for 2 years by that point. And she's like, why are you here? I said, I'm angry. She said, what are you mad about? I said, I have no idea, but I am mad as hell. Okay. So it took a while to get to, what was underneath all this. But I remember she would say, oh man, she'd be like, take me to your pain. I'd be like, there's got to be another way, Right. And she would say, you need to grieve. You need to grieve. I heard that so many times. And I remember, one time I was like, okay, I'm going to grieve. So I dressed up like I was going to a funeral.
Wow.
Yeah. When I went to therapy, but this day I wore all black, like everything. Black socks, black undergarments, black shirt, black pants, everything, right? So I'm sitting in therapy and we're talking, and then about halfway through, I go, this isn't working. She said, what? It's not working. I go, well, you told me to grieve. I came here to grieve. I'm wearing all black. And she,
I love it.
That's what she did. She laughed.
But I love that.
Because I was trying to be open to it, but I didn't know how to do it. Like you were saying, nobody schools us. Yeah. And I didn't know how to do it, but I was finally like, okay, well, she's been saying I need to do this. So fine, I'll do it, you know?
Right.
But it just doesn't work like that.
It doesn't. And I think as a culture, you look at the Jewish culture and they sit Shiva, like they sit and mourn for 7 days. They allow themselves to do no work and no expectations of cooking or cleaning or just getting on with life. And they sit and they cry. And there are times they bring up happy memories and they laugh, but they are actively chiseling out time to just be miserable. And I think it's a beautiful thing to teach people that. And it's not something we're accustomed to doing.
No.
And I think that the best thing you can do is not try to outrun grief. You're never going to outrun it. It will hunt you down and it will always catch up with you.
Oh, that just sounds scary though, doesn't it?
I know it does. It's not fun, but you know, you think about the animal kingdom, and I know this isn't new, like people know this about buffaloes and cows, but cows, when they see a storm coming, they start to run. I don't want to be in the storm.
I didn't know this.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No. Okay. So you're teaching me.
Cows run when they see a storm.
Okay.
As a herd, collectively, they run. But they can't outrun the storm.
Okay.
Because it's laborsome and they get tired and they're
I don't think of cows as very fast
they're
anyway.
Not.
Okay.
They're not.
All right.
So they're stuck in the storm much longer. Where the buffalo does the exact opposite. The buffalo turns to the storm and runs through the storm with the herd, and they are subsequently in the storm a lot less. They face it and they go through the storm.
Wow.
And if we could just look at that as
like
a really,
buffaloes.
Yeah, just be a buffalo, babe. But God gives us these pictures in nature to show us like, hey, these buffalo collectively together as a herd.
Oh no, that's a good point. They're not one buffalo out there. Is I don't know if a buffalo is singular.
No,
buffaloes. Anyway,
they herd.
Buffalo, but
buffalo. That's awesome.
Yeah, but anyway, so it's the pack of buffalo that they're all together. So you're never like isolated facing the storm.
No,
if you're a buffalo,
that's hard. Yeah, I don't.
That's
I'm not
good.
a scientist, but I don't think so. From what I've studied,
they're pack animals, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
that is. We could learn a lot from them.
And they run right through the storm because they face it. Because trying to outrun your grief is just. I did it for 30 years. I mean, it's exhausting. It's exhausting because you're going to try to self-soothe because you don't want to actually face the hardness.
Yeah, you develop all these maladaptive behaviors, which you were talking about already, like addiction to whatever, you know, it could be shopping, just something to make you feel better.
Yeah.
And to not feel pain.
Yeah. Oh, we're dopamine junkies. I mean, in this day and age, it's scrolling on the phone, right? Nobody thinks of that as an addiction, but like, try to put your phone down for 24 hours. Don't pick that thing up and tell me you're not addicted. Tell me. Because I know I'm struggling.
Oh, I do. When
I do a phone fast, I would rather fast from food than a phone. It's really hard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's really hard.
You got a little personal now, but yeah.
Yeah, you're trying to get that dopamine hit in your brain because you're scrolling.
Think of it as a dopamine hit, but okay. Yeah. Well, and the research is coming out now about it. Like Jonathan Haidt, I don't know if you know his research, but he wrote a book called The Anxious Generation. And he's talking about how children are raised on smartphones, how bad it is for them. I can imagine. Because we didn't get that until we were much older, whereas some of these kids get it super young. And
like they're in their strollers with iPads.
Right. And so he's starting a movement to get phones out of schools, kids off of social media. He says no smartphone under, I think, 16. Give them a dumb phone. You know, like, remember the phone before the smartphone? All you could do was like text, and you had to scroll through all the letters.
You had to do like 5 letters to get one.
Yeah, to write one thing.
Character.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but if you insist on your child having a phone,
right?
So, because we grew up without phones,
we survived.
Yep. But yeah. So yeah, I think I do think I'm addicted to my phone.
Me too, hon.
I know. Thanks for bringing that up. But anyway, but back to grief. I fought grief, and then, you know, and then it just, like you said, eventually, I mean, I think if you're open to wanting to grow, wanting to learn, I assume your Trees of Hope took you through a grieving process.
It did. It was, And I think through journaling is where it really...
I was going to say, was it through those letters you wrote?
Yeah, because you're saying everything you couldn't say and that wouldn't have been listened to, and you're just getting it out. It's like a emotional purging that happens, and you're not just grieving a one-time event. You're grieving the loss of your innocence. You're grieving what you wish could have happened and who these people you thought were safe and were supposed to protect you, and how much they contributed to either, they were enablers or they were avoiders or whatever. So you're taking layer upon layer and getting it out.
Like an onion, right?
Yes. And a lot of people that take the program, because I facilitate the class, a lot of them really resist doing these letters. But when you nudge gently, like, hey, this is life-changing. I promise you this will not be for nothing. That every tear you shed will be worth it in the end. It will be. You just got to do it. And I'm here to do it with you. And so are the people in class. They're here to be with you.
Yeah, like a pack of buffaloes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Have you processed through your grief? Because if journaling worked for me, did you use anything else?
Therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you guys are pro therapy.
We are pro therapy.
Yeah. I mean, everybody should have. We already said everybody's from a dysfunctional family.
For sure.
So we all need a therapist.
Yeah.
A good one. I mean, there's bad ones out there, I think.
There are. Yeah. You have to have a relationship that you can trust this person's not just going to keep you in an infinite loop of victimhood.
Yeah. And also, I think for me as a Christian, I wanted somebody informed by Christianity. Like, I wanted to talk about the Bible. I wanted to talk about, we were already talking about forgiveness, and God calls us to forgive, but he doesn't in there say, well, you have to forgive and forget, or that basically what we were saying is you got to go through the process of allowing yourself to feel it as you're processing it to get to the other side, instead of just completely dismiss it and invalidate you in the process, I think.
Yeah.
I think we invalidate ourselves if we're just going to say, okay, I forgive you. But I'm not going to.
I don't think it's real.
Yeah. And then I don't know that it really helps excavate the anger at the injustice.
Right.
Because that's what, for me, has gone down is, you were talking about you had a lot of injustice, and I relate to that. And I think that's where my anger was coming from.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and God's angry about injustice. Like, that's the part that we sometimes get trapped in. Like, we're not supposed to be angry. I do think there's righteous anger and not righteous anger.
Well, the Bible says, be angry and sin not. So it does give us permission to be angry.
Yeah.
It also says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath, which I find that one hard.
Yeah. If we're being honest and we're not just putting a spiritual Band-Aid on it, like, everyone can do it. But I think wrath is like the unholy cousin of righteous anger. Like, wrath leads us to rage and bitterness and revenge, where righteous anger puts anger in its proper place. This is an unjust thing that happened to me. I don't have to be happy about it. And it can propel me to help others and help the ones that are disenfranchised and set aside. And like, it gives you a platform, I think my anger definitely drives how I teach prevention, because I want parents to, I'm angry that there are still people being abused. I am angry that child pornography is so huge in the United States. Like, I should be angry about that. And so that anger harnessed for the kingdom's sake and to help people to protect, I think is good. Wrath is the revenge that I want to take, that I know God doesn't want me to take.
100%.
Yeah.
For anger, though, for me, I would default to anger because anger makes me feel powerful. You know what I mean?
No, I do know. Yeah, you're not vulnerable.
Like,
when
grief
you're angry.
does not make me feel powerful.
Right. Right.
So I don't gravitate towards grief. I have to allow myself to grieve, but I don't, when my therapist would say, you need to grieve and take me to your pain, I'd be like, we got to find another way to do this.
Anger's a great mask for vulnerability and pain.
So this is, okay, a different therapist, much later, because I've worked on different things with, you know, like different rounds of therapy where initially when I went in 2001, it was like, why am I angry? I don't know, but I'm angry. I don't want to be angry. So we got to the abuse, which I told her it was sibling rivalry. She's like, oh no, that was sexual abuse. And I was like, you know, I felt kind of dumb that I didn't realize it was sexual abuse.
I'm so grateful somebody said to me, that's sexual abuse. I don't know that it's dumb. I think it's so hard to wrap our brain around someone that you're supposed to be safe with isn't. This is your family.
Yeah, it was my brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
But mine wasn't like an exploitative type of thing. I think he was trying to, I don't know if he was trying to be funny or something, but he would like grab my breasts from like the moment they developed when I was like 11. And it was just a big joke, and it would taunt me for my breast size. But that went on until I was 30.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I grew up with it. So I didn't understand boundaries, and I didn't understand that my boundaries were being crossed. And so in my mid-20s, I started getting really angry, and I was like, why am I so mad, you know? Because it felt degrading.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so in therapy, she brought that up, that it was sexual abuse, because it didn't feel exploitative. But the fact that it went on for 20 years was probably, I think, it was just problematic for sure.
Yeah.
But also, so I'm skipping around because there was another therapist that I saw more recently who said, this is when I went to go live in the UK and I was studying there. She wanted me to watch this movie. It was Inside Out. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't. I've heard of it.
Okay. Well, in the movie, there's all these like emotions, and I gravitate towards anger. Well, so I remember I watched the movie. I came back into therapy and I go, what is the point of that stupid movie? I said, because there's 5 emotions in the movie. It's deep, by the way.
I'll have to see it then.
Yeah. There's anger, joy, sadness. I don't know them all. All I know is joy was trying to get rid of sadness. And I was like, yes, we need to get rid of sadness. So the whole movie, Joy's trying to eliminate sadness. And so I walk in back into therapy after seeing that movie. I go, what's the point of that stupid movie? Is the point we need sadness? I hate sadness. Remember you were talking about grief. I was like, I don't want sadness, you know? And so I went to go give the movie back. It was a DVD to the person who loaned it to me. I said, here you go. I hate this stupid movie. And she goes, you hate it? I go, yeah, it's a horrible movie. Why? And I was like, oh, it's terrible. And she had like 2 or 3 kids and then another child that was adopted.
Yeah.
And the adopted child had reactive attachment disorder. Something like that.
What that
where
is.
it's like the child doesn't attach to the parents. And now the kid is just in anger and all this. It's really difficult on parents. So she's been working with this child and working with a therapist to help this kid. And she would say, well, what do you do with those big feelings? You know, like when you're sad.
Yeah.
I go, I don't know, you know? And she's like she said with her son, she would have to help him name his feelings and organize his feelings. Because we don't know what we're feeling and we don't so she'd say, oh, are you feeling sad? Because a kid who's like, you could be feeling sad, but you could be acting out in rage.
True.
Because you don't want to feel the sadness.
Right.
And so I was like, oh yeah, that's probably me, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I was trying to return the movie, but I was like, all right, I'll watch it again, you know? It's very deep.
I'm going to have to watch it this weekend.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes. So,
and sometimes you don't know how to process anger. Like, what do you do with it?
Right.
I have come up with my own toolbox.
Oh, tell me about your toolbox for processing anger.
Anger toolbox.
Yeah, let's go.
Number 1, you do have to name it. You have to have some acknowledgement that you're angry. Because even sometimes you're like, I'm not angry. Like before, I'm not angry.
Oh my gosh.
After I went through healing from Trees of Hope,
yes,
I had friends consistently come up to me and go, wow, you just look different. Your whole countenance, your whole face is just different. And I'm like, really? I didn't ever think I was angry. And you know what was the funniest thing is through one of these programs I took, there was like a 50-question quiz. And it was to rate your anger, right? And so it asked all kinds of questions like something silly like, if your sales item doesn't ring up properly, on a scale of 1 to 5, how angry are you if the salesperson doesn't give you the allotted price? Stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
All these psychological questions. And I'm just like marking them off, marking them off. I get to the end of these 50 questions. And you have a number score. My score was, you need help. And that cracked me up so much, because
gosh.
I didn't really think I was that angry. I'm like, doesn't everybody get angry like this, right? So I hand off this quiz. Don't tell the 2 people I hand it to. They're coworkers. I'm like, could you do me a favor? Could you just take this quiz and see what you score? And they're like, okay, well, can you give us a little background? What's an anger quiz? I just want to see, right? So they get theirs and they are scoring it in front of me. And I'm like, well, wait, that doesn't make you angry? And they're looking at me like I have 3 heads. No, that doesn't make me angry. And I'm like, but now I'm trying to convince them to be angry about things. And I'm like, wow, I am angry. So acknowledging that I was an angry person was step 1.
Okay, wait. So you reminded me of, so I had this friend that was a tennis coach,
Mm-hmm.
and he would hit with me. He's actually the person I think the most responsible for me coming to faith.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I was a college scholarship tennis player, and he was coaching, and we would use the same courts, and he was always coming on the days we were practicing, and we would be coming off the courts, he'd be coming on, and he was so smiley, and it used to annoy me. He was the happiest man I ever met. He was like Mr. Rogers, you know, that Mr. Rogers neighborhood, whatever,
Yeah.
like super happy. But anyway, so Mike was a coach, and then he built a relationship with me through just playing tennis. But now he taught tennis for a living, so he got paid to teach. But sometimes he would say, "Hey, you want to go hit?" And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." That was a way for him to get around me,
Yeah.
and build a friendship, build rapport, and then eventually talk about God. You know, so it was a process. Anyway, I remember one day we got to the point where we would go hit, and I'd say, "Michael, listen, I just want you to feed the ball to me." Because, you know, a tennis pro will have a whole bunch of balls and he just feeds them, and you practice one shot or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because normally when you're playing, you're just going to hit it back and forth, right? Well, I said, look, man, I just feed the ball. I just want to hit the ball as hard as I can. He's like, okay. So he feeds the ball. So I wasn't trying to hit with him. That's really the more way to do it, is you hit with the person. And so I just start wailing on the ball, right? And he goes, well, I was laugh because he called me Cadet. That was his nickname for me. Cadet, what are you so mad about? I said, I'm not mad, Michael. Just feed the ball. And so, like, because I was actually a ROTC cadet for a while, and even though I never did go active duty, he still called me Cadet for 30 years. Wow. So I said, just feed the ball. And he just kept feeding the ball, and I just kept wailing on the ball. And finally, like 10 more minutes of me smashing the ball around. And I'm wearing myself out, just smashing the tennis ball. And I go, I think I'm mad, Michael. You know, like he knew me better than I knew myself.
Yeah.
You talk about admitting when you're angry. Like, I was so in denial about it that I didn't even know. And I'm just like, feed me the ball so I can just get my anger out. And he's the one that has to help me see that I'm angry.
Wow. Yeah. Sometimes we just do this in life. We show up this way and we think it's normal, but other people look at it and go, what is your problem? What's another good toolbox thing? Feeling the anger, like giving myself permission, like when something sets me off, is to allot some time to actually process, okay, why am I angry? Does this bring up, because anger is it's like a secondary emotion.
Yeah.
It's what's on top, what's underneath do I need to get to?
Yeah.
Is it rejection? Is it abandonment? What am I actually mad about? So that's tool number 2.
And it's usually triggering something that happened in the past.
Sure. It's always, for me, and I don't know about anyone else, but it always comes back to that first family of origin, those first deep wounds that you feel in that family. And it's like, wow, here we go again. And then finding ways to express it healthy for me was really important, because I was obviously not expressing it in a healthy way for a long time. And I find sometimes it's just about laughing. Like if I'm really pissed and I put on, a comedy show or someone.
Sebastian.
I love him. Sebastian Maniscalco cracks me up.
Yeah, Italian.
Yeah. And so laughing, and then
Wait, laughing helps you deal with the anger?
yes, because it's not, I've already acknowledged it. I'm not trying to get rid of it. I'm just saying I am angry. What can I do to actually find some level ground where I've already processed why I'm angry.
So it just helps you shift, probably.
Yeah, it helps me to just not stay in the anger.
Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good.
Journaling, because that has been a lifeline for me. Like writing out it like a word vomit. Like if I'm really mad, I have a husband file. So my husband knows I have it, but I have a husband file. So when I get really, really pissed and I don't feel it's an appropriate time to bring something up, because I'm all about timing and tone.
Oh, timing is
and
so
respecting
important.
How do I get my message across in a healthy way? So sometimes I have to have a word vomit. So I have a document that's the husband document and it's word vomit. And I have it for other people in my life when I'm really pissed, and I'm not going to just react.
Okay.
I'm going to process. So journaling, laughing it out. Sometimes just music. Like I'll name a playlist, I feel like beating your brains out, and that'll be the name of the playlist.
I love it.
Silly, but it helps because it's funny. Like I would never beat someone's brains out. Although I've thought about it at times, I wouldn't actually act on it. So it's almost as if that playlist is named so that I can acknowledge that's where I'm at.
That's good.
Listen to that music, kind of, some of it's a little bit more hard than other songs, and some of them are really peaceful, and it's a mix of things. And music was never really big in my home. We didn't grow up with music. We grew up with either yelling or, I don't know. Like my husband's family had music on in the background constantly. Like he was in a very musical family. He played piano as a child. There was always some sort of music playing, and I didn't have that. So music to me can be very therapeutic. Kind of.
I love music.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
I love some music, and other times it's just like, just give me silence. But yeah, stuff like that. Just things I know work for me.
Yeah.
Giving myself a timeout. When I want to scream and yell, I'm like, oh no, that's not going to get me anywhere. And I literally have to remove myself from a scenario.
Oh, so good. Come on.
Yeah. It's taken a long time to get there.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have come a long way.
I have.
And we're still growing.
Yes. Yes. I don't think you ever arrive on this side of heaven. I think you're always in a constant journey of learning and healing, and there's always going to be layers that you have to unpack.
I want to keep growing.
Me
100%. Yeah. I just want to keep being the best version of myself.
Yes.
Allowing God to sanctify me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, I want to call this liminal vibes, because that's the space of like, we're not where we were,
right?
But we're not arrived yet either. We're in the in-between,
right?
The messy middle.
The messy middle. I mean, and that's what sanctification is in the Bible, right? We're constantly being sanctified into his image and learning along the way. And he's so patient with us. Man, he's so patient.
Yeah, he is.
There are times where if I was God, I would have left me a long time ago, but thank God I'm not him.
Yes. He will never leave you nor forsake you.
Oh, amen.
So thank you so much for unpacking your story. I feel like we could go for hours. I love we've always had a kindred spirit, and just your hunger for more of God.
Yes.
Has always been something that has drawn me to you in friendship. And so I appreciate your honesty.
It's been a pleasure. It's nice to be able to just talk about it, and hopefully somebody can go, oh, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And I can learn from that.
That's the whole point. Is we want God to, my pain is redeemed through other people being able to grow from it. And I think I've grown so much from other people's stories.
Likewise.
Yes.
Yeah, I think testimony is a powerful thing for people to have in community and learn and grow from each other. So I don't have to bang my head against the wall because you've already done it. You know what works and what doesn't.
Yes, there was an author that she says, learn from other people's mistakes. You don't have time to make them all yourself.
Oh, that's good.
Isn't that rich?
It is rich.
Come on. So can we do the rapid fire round?
Okay.
Yes.
Let's do it.
All right. So we have some
I want to just say I'm a little nervous because
about the rapid fire round.
Sure, because I feel like I have to get it out in one take.
Oh no, but this is not a right or wrong anyway. You know, these aren't like your multiplication tables.
Okay.
There's not a right or wrong.
Okay. Well, I like that.
Yeah. So be free.
All right. I'm free.
All right. So here we go. These are rapid fire questions for this show, faith and mental health, and everything in between. Okay.
Okay.
So here we go. First question. This is a multiple choice, and you get to pick one. So therapy, journaling, or a prayer walk. What would you pick?
First is journaling, and then therapy.
Okay. Cool.
So I come prepared for the therapist.
Oh yeah, I definitely same. I want to.
I'm paying for this.
I want to get my money's worth. 100%. 100%. Yes. All right, here we go. Here's another one. Coffee, tea, or just give me Jesus.
Coffee and Jesus.
Coffee and Jesus. I like it.
Yes. Tea is like.
Yeah. All right, here we go. A hobby people would never guess you have.
Improv.
What?
Yes, it's so much fun.
How did I not know that?
I don't know. I don't know. We're living in a different part of the state, so maybe I haven't shared it with you.
So you go to improv?
I do. It's like adults don't have an outlet for fun.
Wait, and this is where like you get suggestions from the audience and then you do something?
Oh, wait, let me not freak you out. I'm not performing in front of an audience yet. Okay. It's a class.
Okay.
So there's, 15 people.
All right.
And you have an instructor.
Class.
It's so much fun.
Yes, and.
Yes, and.
Yes, and. Right?
Yep, that's one of them.
That's a very...
I love it. It's so much fun.
Oh, wow.
I'm very fun motivated.
I want to go with you to that.
You should. Come up and visit.
Okay. All right. Here we go. A favorite comfort food after a long emotional week.
Pizza. And it's got to be crispy on the bottom. I don't want any of that pizza where it falls. Ugh.
Yeah, no.
No, good New York style pizza, crispy on the bottom, a little bit of grease, from the pepperoni and the sausage, maybe a couple of caramelized onions.
Okay.
That does me right.
That sounds really good, actually.
I know that wasn't a one-word answer, but...
no, it's not about one word. It's just like, okay, here we go. You ready?
Yes.
What's one moment you felt God's presence the strongest?
Healing from sexual abuse, believe it or not. Like processing through that. I don't think I've ever felt closer to the Lord. Just that he was so tender with me. And just, there was a particular song actually, and it was an old hymn.
What is it?
It's Indelible Grace.
That's a hymn? I never heard of it.
Yes. And it's, no, that's the name of the band, and it's called I Ask the Lord. And it's this hymn about asking the Lord to just take away the sin and God not taking it and walking through that with you so that you can see that nothing in this world satisfies but him. And I would play that song over and over again.
I've never heard that song.
The lyrics are amazing.
So it's like about, you want the quick fix.
Yes.
Take it, God, take it. This hurts, take it.
And he says
and
no.
He's like, no, I'm going to walk you through it instead.
Yes.
Wow.
It's an incredible hymn, and I played it all through my healing journey through sexual abuse.
I gotta go. So you have a movie to watch and I have a song to play. Yes. Okay. Here we go. Last two. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Who is your go-to person when you need grounding?
My husband. My husband is the center of calm, and I'm the chaos. And he does ground me. He is kind and doesn't rush me through the process. And there are times where just his presence, like he's the only person that I can actually feel comfortable silence with. It's wild. I've never had that. So yeah.
That's so good. And I'm so happy for you because I know you had two other marriages that didn't work out well. So the third time is the charm.
Amen. It sure is.
In your life, right?
It is. Yeah.
Good on you.
I love it.
Good on him too.
Listen to our podcast.
Yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
We'll share the link to that. Okay, here's the last one. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
What's one boundary that protects your peace in relationships?
People's opinions of me are none of my business. Yeah. Like if you don't like me, that's okay. Like it's none of my business what you think of me. And it took me a long time. I wouldn't have admitted to you back then, but I did care what people think of me. And I mean, I obviously care enough to be, I want to be a good representation of Jesus, but there are going to be people that just simply don't like you for no good reason. They just don't. And that's okay. Like, I don't need to be everyone's best friend.
Yeah. We're not everybody's cup of tea, right?
I'm definitely not everyone's cup of tea. And that's okay.
Oh, you're my cup of tea, though.
Thank you. You are too.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here.
It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate I enjoy you so much. So thank you.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been a blessing, and I hope to do it again sometime.
Yes. So tell us where people can find you. You were mentioning your podcast.
Yes, my husband and I have a podcast called Detours. We're on season 5. You can find us on Spotify and Apple, and anywhere you can get a podcast, we're there. And it's not visual just yet, but we do talk through some really hard things and what God has shown us along the way. You can find my writing. I do a lot of devotional writing at debmarsalisi.com. And so I do devotionals and testimonials and everything in between, some poetry in there, and Trees of Hope. So I write for Trees of Hope, which is an incredible organization where we've walked through some of that in our first few minutes here. You can find that website. There's some healing journals in there for people and some opportunity to come and take a class either online or in person.
What is the website for Trees of Hope?
treesofhope.org.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh.
It's my pleasure.
Okay.